and peacefulness. And they live in that, where we as human beings typically don't.
Oh, yeah. Now, I got to ask you a question, and I'm sorry, I'm going to change the subject a little bit. I used to have a friend who was a judge, and, and I knew him real well, and he actually, one day we were talking, and, I asked him some questions, and he goes, about legal things and stuff like that, and he goes, attorney is only good if they're a good actor. If they're a lousy actor, you don't have a good attorney. Is that pretty much true?
I think it depends. I wouldn't say that we're necessarily acting. However, you have to be especially if you're going to be a trial lawyer, a very good storyteller, because people base their decisions off of emotions, and they bring their life experiences to the table. So you have to be able to connect with them emotionally. It's no different than somebody writing a good book or having a good movie. If you don't emotionally connect with the person who's sitting in the chair in the audience or sitting behind the book reading it, they're going to put the book down. They're going to turn the movie off, and it's no different in the courtroom. You have to be able to convey your client's story emotionally, that it connects with the jury in the hopes that they will believe your side of the story versus the prosecution. So, do you call it acting? Maybe. I don't believe that the story I'm telling is not the truth for my client, however. So, I guess it depends on what your definition of acting is.
I don't know.
I believe it's more storytelling.
In other words, if you got an attorney like Mr. Rogers, you probably have a better case.
Oh, yes. Yes. Welcome to the neighborhood.
Yeah, or the wrong neighborhood where you kind of get locked up for a few years.
True that.
Gary, I've got some information on the subject of acting. Actually, Andrea, I went to Southwestern Law School in California, the oldest private law school down there in that state. And believe it or not, being in L.A., we had to, in our law school, take a semester of acting classes where an acting coach would come into our law school and actually teach the class. It was like a 3-hour class kind of thing. You take it 3 times a week for an entire semester. Not that they wanted to train us, like you said, to act, something counter from what we really do, but help us perfect our storytelling abilities. That's exactly it. You've got to be able to, weave the facts of your client and the case into a compelling story that people will believe. And I think that's important, and that's kind of how we approached this acting class back then.
That kind of scares me, I hate to say it. I mean, from the standpoint, the whole legal system kind of scares me. I'm going to go back, back about 12, 13 years ago. I had a son that got in trouble, and he was in Superior Court. And, it was just before sentencing. The attorneys did their whole thing. What alarmed me, that this particular Superior Court judge, almost all the way through the trial, was reading magazines. That scared the you-know-what out of me. I'll be honest with you. How could he make any right type of decisions if he's reading, some fishing magazine or outdoor sports magazine? And I kind of ratted him out, and he did get in a little trouble from it. But, I mean, I'm surprised if I caught it during a trial with my son. I mean, how many other trials did he actually, pulled out a book and was bored of the trial? How can you listen to a trial if you're reading a magazine?
You're not. And unfortunately, I tell most of my clients when they come into my office that everything you learned in school, you might as well throw out the window, because Even though the Constitution says you're innocent until proven guilty, that's not reality. The reality is that my clients are always guilty until I prove them innocent. And the fact of the matter is there is no justice. It is just us. And that's what I tell my clients. And, you know, unfortunately, people stick their head in the sand, and as long as it's not applicable or doesn't pertain to them, it's fine. You know, we have been raised that the police and the prosecution can do what they want. The police can lie, cheat, and steal, and it's okay because the ends justify the means. People believe law and order happens in the courtroom, just like it does on TV, that, you know, 30 minutes into the TV show, the cops get you in, you confess, it's a slam dunk case, prosecution takes it to the jury, and 5 minutes before your 50 minutes is up on the TV show, they've got a verdict, and it's guilty, and they got their man, and justice has been served, and the victim gets to go off and goes on her merry way. And that's not reality, you know. There are times that people are really innocent, and unfortunately all it takes is for someone to pick up the phone or call the police or make an allegation, and the ball starts rolling, and there's no way to stop that. And you happen to be in the crossfires of an ugly divorce, and now you're accused of, you know, touching your kid because your wife wants to have full custody of the kid, and by God, you're not going to get to see that kid because she's mad at you because you're cheating with the secretary, or whatever the case might be, or you were 10 days late on child support, so now you're going to pay, and whatever, right? The list goes on. And, you know, how do you prove that you didn't touch your child, or that this 11-year-old kid is making this up? What reason does a child have to lie that they were sexually assaulted? You know, that's unfortunately the world we live in.
Or a younger kid yet, you know, like 3, 4 years old, you know, the other parent could really brainwash their kid really fast to say certain things. The guy, I had a friend when I was managing a business in Tacoma. You know, all of a sudden, the police swarmed into the business I was general manager of, and they arrested one of the guys that worked for me. And the bad thing is, I really knew the guy. I don't believe anything wrong with the guy. Was a fanatic photographer. I mean, he took pictures of everything in the world. Okay, his wife was having an affair on him, but he did one stupid thing. His son was taking a bath, or his daughter, I can't remember. They were like 3, 4 years old. And, you know, they had the little rubber duckies in the bathtub and all that stuff. He took a picture of it, you know, and then he sent the picture, if I remember right, to like his brother or somebody, a relative. And they got him for internet, whatever, doing porn. The guy didn't do anything wrong, but he didn't have, the wife cleaned him out financially. He didn't have enough money for a good attorney, so he had a public defender. And he got like 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, unfortunately, it is a very tough system to navigate, and a jury really wants to believe a child. And unless you have something glaring to show that the child is not being truthful, like I said, the jury just really wants to believe everything that child has said. Children don't lie.
No, yeah, well, I have 8 of them. They're all adults now. The oldest is 40, but I can honestly tell you a couple of them, when they were like 5 or 6 years old, all the way up to their age now, you can't believe a single word they say.
You know, and that's funny because that's the conversation that people in the real world have. And that may be a conversation that the jurors say out loud. And then when they get in the back room, the conversation is, no child would make this up, you know, and the psychologist or the prosecution's witnesses all want to say, well, no child would say that they were sexually molested when they weren't. I mean, you're seeing it now with the Me Too movement. You know, how many of these people that came forward with Bill Cosby or Harvey is it
Weinstein.
Steinhauser or Weinhauser or whatever his last name is. I mean, same thing, all these people that are coming forward. And then you have, people on either side, well, what did you wait so long for? And were you really drugged? And was it as bad? And then the other side is like, oh, we need to support them. They're coming forward and this and that. And I'm thinking, come on, really? You waited this long?
Well, how many more honestly credible witnesses, like in Bill Crosby's case? I think there were some people out there, honestly, women that, let's face it, some of the models were not model material anymore. They're old, like Bill Crosby. They're old now. They're in their 50s and 60s. Maybe they were famous in their 20s and 30s, but they're not and haven't been for a long time. Guess what? It gets them out on the media. They feel important again because people are mentioning their names. They feel like a celebrity. And I honestly, even when Bill Crosby, he probably did what he did because he admitted it. But I think some of the people that accused him probably are accusing him and lying about it just because they wanted some, celebrity status.
Well, and there's no way to really prove because who was ever with anybody? It was the two of them, right? And she's saying I was drugged. I'm limited as to what I know. This is what happened. I remember going there, and then I, don't remember anything after that, and I remember waking up like this. So there's a gap in time that's potentially missing for any number of them. And so that's the hard part, and then it comes down to a he said, she said, and all it takes is one person to ruin the credibility of Mr. Cosby, which was obviously done, and then the other naysayers that come after that point in time potentially get to ride the wave of the one person that's credible, and the rest may not be credible. And it's really tough when you have that many people pointing the finger, because at some point then the jury goes, well, they can't all be lying, can they? But it's tough. The allegations are always tough, no matter who is making the allegations. And like I said, it's a tough situation for everybody involved, because if it did happen, it's sad, and if it didn't happen, it's sad for the other person. And it's tough all the way around for everybody.
And I feel sorry for attorneys like you. Honestly, you're doing your best to defend somebody. I can see where it actually would take emotional toll on an attorney trying to defend people, even if they believe they were innocent or not or whatever. I mean, the drain emotionally that you had to go through on each one of these trials for 13 years. I don't know how you even did it 13 years.
Yeah, that's tough. And actually, I would say the hardest part is knowing that my client's innocent and they're looking at life in prison, and knowing that it's much easier for me and an easier pill to swallow if I believe my client is guilty and the jury convicts, or the jury doesn't convict. Because, what I usually tell people is that my job is to make sure that the police and the prosecution do their job and that the Constitution is upheld. My job is not to decide guilt or innocence. That's a jury's job. And if I've done my job, I hope they see the facts the way that they should. If they don't, then I believe karma will be served. Like I said, the hardest part is when I believe my client is innocent and the jury doesn't see that, and I have an innocent man, woman, a child sitting in jail potentially for the rest of their life. And it's getting harder and harder with the cell phones, the sexting. These kids have no idea that by taking a picture of their genitals and then sending it to their girlfriend that they have for the flavor of the week, and 2 weeks from now when she's mad at him and she's dating his best friend, and he's now, sent a picture of her genitalia to the whole football team because they're no longer together, and he's mad at his best friend because his best friend's dating her. Now he's just distributed child pornography, and he's looking at life in prison at 15 years old.
Or being classified as a sex predator for the rest of his life.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, the worst is going to prison. I mean, even registering is difficult. However, he's looking at life in prison.